Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. With me is my colleague, Clint Lausch. I'm a senior consultant and the president of the Montessori Foundation, which is a nonprofit Montessori and other independent school consulting and mentoring coaching company. I've been around for 30 some years, been involved in school leadership really since I was a kid. My mother was the founder of the Barry School, one of the older independent schools in the greater Washington, D.C. area, which is almost 100 years old now. Clint is the president of a company called Ames. He is one of my favorite people in the independent school marketing business, and I'll let Clint speak briefly for himself.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I'll speak briefly. I got a little interrupted in the house here, so we're working outside today. So if you hear any noise, I apologize. But Tim, I'll turn it back over to you. But yeah, as Tim had mentioned, we have an all-in-one marketing and missions software platform, and most recently we partnered with Montessori Compass to create the Montessori Growth Suite. So when you have the survey at the end of today's session, if you want to learn more about having an all-in-one platform to finally have an all-in-one platform to do everything from your advertising, marketing, admissions, billing, and classroom management, that's what we're doing at the Growth Suite and with the Montessori Growth Suite. And you can always go to montessoricompass.com to check that out. With that being said, Tim, I appreciate that and appreciate the intro. I love doing these webinars with you, and I'll just go through some logistics real quick for everybody. One, use the Q&A feature for today's session. If you have questions, we'll have time for Q&A, so use that Q&A feature. I'll be on mute behind the scenes just monitoring that. We'll send out any PowerPoint slides, resources at the after the session is done. And you can always go to the Montessori Foundation YouTube page to check out the recordings as well. So I know it might be getting a little bit noisy around me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop on mute. But I will be here monitoring questions. So Tim, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And while I speak Montessori, I also speak parochial schools, charter schools, public schools, work with lots of districts and independent schools of all sorts. I grew up as the child of one of the senior heads of schools in the greater Washington area, and I love them all. So again, what I want to speak to you about is something many of you know about already, but it never hurts to have a refresher, which is how do you take a look at your marketing plan and make sure that the way you're approaching marketing is fresh, is lively, and is using your resources and your time well. All marketing works. There is no news that's bad news. Most of us think that the way to market is word of mouth, and word of mouth is absolutely the best, most believable marketing there is. Nothing is stronger than the affirmation and praise of a school, large or small, Montessori or otherwise, by an existing parent or a past parent, or even better, a current student who says, I love my school. On the other hand, it is a serious mistake to rest on your laurels and assume that word of mouth is going to work by itself, because it can turn against you just as easily as it works for you. So there's an old saying that chance favors the prepared mind. In the rest of the world of businesses, a business will have a line item in their budget between 5% of all gross income and 33% normally is spent on marketing. The typical independent school will spend somewhere under 1%. I highly recommend that you not do that. And at the very least, whatever you're going to do, whether you're doing free guerrilla marketing, whether you think you're doing word of mouth, and word of mouth done correctly can work, whatever you're doing, we urge you, follow the principles of developing a good, sound marketing plan. I am sending you at the end of this webinar not only a simplistic article. By the way, we have whole courses on how to do this. And if you want, the Montessori Foundation will help you develop your marketing plan for your unique school. That's one of the consulting mentoring, coaching services we offer. And we do that, by the way, in conjunction with people like Clint, who have all the right tools to make it easier for a small school to operate like a really big school, because they have most of the resources you would ever want for automating your marketing, maximizing your marketing, getting the data on how well your marketing is working, leading your people every step along the way from the first contact and so forth. Now, if you've ever heard Clint talk, he will say to you that most of the people who first approach us, whether they Google us, whether they walk into the office and ask for a brochure, whether they attend a special event, they're typically 6 months or more from the time they actually intend to act. I don't mean just 6 months away from the first day their child would attend if they apply and if you admit them. I mean 6 months away from the first time they approach you. So, with that in mind, keeping in mind that we're dealing with parents who are typically going to read anything on their smartphone, they are often not going to listen to any voice that is being presented because they're often in their car or they're standing in line at the grocery store. They're multitasking. So, it's vitally important if you have anything at all. One, you need subtitles. Two, they have to be readable. And three, you got to understand that the average person only gives you about 3 seconds. When they go to a website, when they look at a piece of email, if they even bother to open it, you only have 3 seconds to slam home your message. The other thing Clint often mentions that I certainly agree with is I used to teach people don't even know you were talking to them until they've heard your message 8 times. Now, I don't mean necessarily the same ad repeated 8 times, although that is the reason why you sometimes on TV and radio hear the same company repeatedly delivering the same ad. I personally find that annoying. I think it's better to have a random collection of 20 or more messages, each of which makes sense, but each of which is different. I also happen to believe in marketing, whether it's print marketing, TV marketing, radio marketing, person to person. I like telling a story. I'm a great believer in the idea that people love stories. But today, what we're talking about is not how to write the perfect ad. We're talking about how to develop a marketing plan. So, the first step in this is, and I realize many of you know all this, you may be saying, hey, you're not teaching me anything new. But if one of you is reminded of something that you learned long ago when you were taking your first degree in school leadership, or something when you first went to a workshop on school marketing, it never hurts. It never hurts to be reminded of what works. So the first step is do not assume people know who you are. I don't care how famous you are. And by the way, if you're a parochial school, don't sell the fact you're a parochial school. Everyone's running a parochial school. If you're a Montessori school, don't sell Montessori. That doesn't mean you don't tell people you're a faith-based school or you're a Montessori school. It's that that isn't what makes you unique. What makes you unique is what makes you you. So the point is, part of what makes you yourself or your school itself is the unique character, the unique program, the unique values, the unique mission that your school stands for. But having said that, you're probably not alone. If you're a Sudbury school, you're one of many Sudbury schools. If you're an Episcopalian school, you are one of many. If you're a Catholic school, you are one of many. What you're selling is Georgetown Day School, which happens to be a Jesuit school. It doesn't mean you don't mention the quality of Jesuit education or the quality of Montessori education or whatever education you're offering. You're selling your unique lifestyle experience. The second thing you want to do is you want to set very clear targets for your enrollment and for your retention. Having said that you set those targets doesn't mean you're going to meet them. But if you don't have a plan of what you're trying to achieve, then you can't really figure out, are we getting there? Have we set a goal? How far off are we? Are we exceeding our goal? Set clear goals. Second is track what's happening. Track your key metrics. That includes things like how many phone calls come in, how many clicks do you get in the course of a week, a month, a day? How does it compare this year to last year? How many people actually show up on tours? How many people actually convert? Now, the word convert can be confusing. By that, I certainly don't mean, did we convert them to our religion? Did we turn them into a lifelong Montessori groupie? Or did that non-Catholic family suddenly decide to become one of the faith? What I mean by conversion is what marketers mean by conversion. We got them to do something specific that we had in mind. And that could be as simple as fill out a form that says, please send me more information. And they give you your first name, their last name, and their email. Or book a tour, or actually come to the office. You got to think about what is it you're trying to get them to do. So track whether or not it's working and keep track of it year after year after year. And then finally, whatever goals you're setting, they ought to be part of your strategic plan, because marketing is one of the 9 areas of running a school. And everything influences how successful you'll be in marketing. Now, again, if you have endless money, you can sell almost anything to anybody. Most of us don't have endless money. We've got to work smart. We only have so many hours in a day. There's usually not enough people working on admissions in our school. We need to get the word out there. We need to follow up in every lead. We have a lot to do, which is where, frankly, I think people like Clint fit in, because they help us leverage our limited dollars and our limited time. But the bottom line is you need to be thinking not only about marketing, because marketing is connected to what are you marketing? Who are you? What's the message? What are you trying to sell? Who would love you? Who are you trying to communicate with? The facilities, your location, lots of things go into marketing. And obviously, if your building has a fire, your marketing is going to go down until people are convinced that you've rebuilt after the fire. So again, everything is tied together. The next thing you want to do is you want to define, who are we trying to reach? What does the ideal parent look like for our school? Now, a lot of people think that they know because, they talk to, they know who's in the school now, but the people that are in your school now are not necessarily your ideal parents. I really invite you to give some thought to this. What the best parent you've ever known, the parent that made you smile, the ones you wish you could clone, what are they like? And then flip that and ask yourself, was there ever a parent in your school that made your life miserable? You want to avoid the second type, and you want to attract more people like the first type. And the parents who are in your school now may be perfect. On the other hand, if you're a Montessori school, just to use an example, and you keep losing families at the beginning of kindergarten or at the transition to first grade, you may have had great people in your school, but they were not the right fit, not if you want to run a good Montessori program. You have to define, what are you trying to do? You could define it by, do they give to the annual campaign? Do they come in and support the teachers? Do they not sue you for some imagined insult? There could be any number of things that would make a family ideal or make a family a nightmare. You need to think carefully, who would your ideal parent be? Who would love you for what you are? And where do they live, and how can you reach them? The next thing you want to figure out is, why would anyone spend this kind of money to go to your school? What drives them to you? And don't assume you know. I mean, obviously you want to interview people, but surveys usually only give a small part of the picture, because one, people don't like surveys usually. They don't want to put their name down. They don't want to spend too much time on it. If you really want to know what's going on with people, you need to get it from multiple sources, including talking to other ally parents. You want to interview parents. I mean, I'm a great believer in sitting down with the current parents and prospective parents and asking them questions and recording it all and then having it transcribed and doing essentially a word cloud. Why do people come to your school? Is it the football team? Is it that you're now 200 years old? Is it that your campus looks like a college? Whatever brings people to you. You want to figure out, why do people come? You also want to figure out, why do people who look into you and decide not to come, what is it that turns them off? Now, you may or may not be able to change it, but it never hurts to know what the truth is. The next thing you want to do is tailor your messaging and tailor your marketing campaigns accordingly. So these are the first two steps. Ideal parents, know who you are. The next is you want to think about your brand positioning and your brand messaging. In other words, you're not the only private school in town. You may not be the only Montessori school in town, the only parochial school in town, the only prep school in town, the only boarding school in town. You need to figure out what makes your school unique. How do you message that uniqueness to your prospective families and to your current families? And how do you develop a consistent and authentic message that people believe? A lot of stuff that people put out there sounds forced, artificial, meaningless. We don't need vapid messaging. We need messaging that strikes the reader's ear, if you will, as honest, sincere, quick, and clear to the point. FedEx's motto is "Get the package there tomorrow." The Montessori Foundation's motto is "We're here to help." What's your motto? The next thing is, if you're a school that has multiple program levels, don't treat your lower school like chopped liver. Your youngest kids in a school that goes through high school or through middle school often get very little love. And that's because we have a natural bias, many of us in education, that the older the students are that you teach, the more they're like college kids, the more seriously we take them, the more prestige, the more we pay our teachers. A high school chemistry teacher is likely going to get more money than an elementary science teacher. And gosh knows they're going to get more money and more prestige than a preschool science teacher. I would suggest to you it should be the exact opposite. The child is the mother of the woman she's going to become. I don't care what age you're teaching, whether it's infants and toddlers and early childhood, elementary, middle school, high school, every single child is a real person. And you want to speak to every single part of your school, because ideally you want to get your kids in when they're really young and keep them all the way through your highest grade, through graduation. So in your marketing, you got to find a way to communicate the whole school. Don't just market the oldest kids. The next thing you want to do is a competitive analysis. You want to think about, who is your competition? Who's out there that you're competing with? You can't make them go away, but what you can do is be sure you know who they are. And remember, your real competition, if you're an independent school, whether you're nonprofit, for-profit, big, small, preschool, elementary, K-8, K-12, whatever, your real competition is the local state schools. Government schools are free. That's the real competition. And there is tremendous pressure on the average family to send their kids to public school. What are you, an idiot? You got money to burn? You're going to spend $35,000 a year per kid to send them to Aardvark Academy? What's wrong with you? So again, you have to really think, why do people come to you? And what's your competition? And that includes the other independent schools. It also includes the local public schools. Next thing you want to do is understand your competition's strengths, and you want to understand, where do they let people down? When someone chooses not to go to them, why do they typically choose not to put their kids in that particular school. And obviously, it's not that you're going to badmouth them, but you want to understand what the psychology is. The next thing you want to do is be very clear about what makes you different. And in your messaging, you want to find a way to put a positive spin on everything that makes your school different from the other choices that are out there. Now, the next thing you want to do is look at your website. Most of us ought to burn our website, me included. You want to figure out how are you coming across to people online in everything from email to your digital ads on Facebook, whatever you're doing. How good could it get if money was no object? My advice would be look at other people's ads and take a screenshot, if you know how to do a screenshot, of the best stuff you ever see. It doesn't mean you duplicate it, but you need to know what catches your eye. That doesn't mean what catches your eye will catch a parent's eye, because you may not think the same way. But at the very least, let's think about what do you like. So whatever you do, your website needs to be really good on a mobile phone, because most people, 80% of all websites, are visited by people who are on a mobile phone. They're sitting in their car in pickup line. They're at their desk and they just have a moment and they pick up their phone and they put in something to Dr. Google, and there are private schools near me, Catholic schools near me. Your website needs to look good on a smartphone, and you need to try that out. Everything you do needs to work on a smartphone. Second thing is use landing pages. Just on Tuesday, Clint did a workshop on the development of really strong landing pages. And I don't care whether you use Ames or you build your own, however you do it, the idea of a landing page is it spotlights one thing. There is no menu. People cannot navigate away from it. It has a clear image, a clear message. Everything is right in your face. And the goal is don't let these people get distracted. We want them to know what we're trying to say, and we want to get them ideally to take an action, which is usually the CTA, the call to action. The last thing on this page is you want to be sure that everything you do is designed to capture them as a lead, i.e., get their first name, their last name, and their email. If you get more, great, but in general, the advice is be careful how much you ask for, because if they see too much, they'll simply navigate away. It's just too much trouble to get whatever it is you're asking them to do. Now, keep in mind, when someone's desperate, their mindset in the market is different than when they're just out there randomly scrolling around. Much of the stuff we purchase is a random impulse decision. Somebody talks about, my kid's going to Aardvark Academy and he's learning Latin. I can't believe it. And they sit there and they think, wow, I think I need to look at this Aardvark Academy. On the other hand, most people don't think a lot about funeral homes until they need a funeral home. They don't think about wedding chapels until they need a wedding venue. They don't think about private schools until they've got a kid who they decide, I need to get my kid into a private school. Those people are already in the market, and that's where Google ads really come in, because they're going to Google private schools near me, preschools near me, Catholic schools near me. So clearly you want to take people who do that kind of Google to a landing page. You want to capture their information so that you can begin to follow up with them and do something. And you want to have a clear call to action. Click here to download, our guide to finding a great private school in our area. Or click here to schedule time to come and see how good a school can be, because you're going to love it here. The next thing is you're going to want to develop what are called lead generation campaigns. And those are ads that are designed to make the phone ring. Now, in today's world, you're probably not going to make the phone ring. I used to sit there at schools and listened to how often the phone rang. And if it didn't ring 40 times a day with inquiries, I was worried. And a lot of times these days, what comes in are Google clicks. So they may fill out a digital form, but our goal is not just to have them click. Our goal is to have them do something that leads to action. So what you want is not that they download some PDF on how to find a great school. The real goal is we want them to enroll our school, but they're not simply going to go from a first date to a lifetime commitment instantly. You've got to develop a relationship with these people. So whatever you're doing, whether it's Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, you're going to create campaigns that are designed to get someone to do something. And typically, that something is click here to get something that you want. And that's called a lead magnet. A lead magnet is typically some kind of PDF. It could be a video. It could be click here to enter a contest to get a year's free tuition. I don't know many people doing that. But whatever it is, and usually it's going to be, the 100 reasons why you want to send your kid to a Montessori school, whatever it is. You're trying to get them to get that. And the price of admission is they give you their name and their email address. The other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have organic SEO, search engine optimization. And SEO simply means that in everything you put online, whether it's a landing page or whether it's each page of your website, you want to have keywords embedded there, written in the text, that are likely to pop up when Google basically crawls through every single website in the world every hour. And it looks to see what is the message on your website. So what they're looking for is what's called search engine optimization. If you're not sure how to do that, and you would be in good company, you can learn about it. There are plenty of people who will teach you on YouTube how to do your own SEO. Many people spend $1,000 a month for good search engine optimization. And the reason why people do it is it's free advertising. Now, way of understanding is this. When someone is looking for a wedding venue and they click in wedding venues near me or coffee shops near me, they're already in the market. They're looking. And so what a search engine optimization does is it brings up those people who are in that business, funeral homes, kindergartens, preschools, summer camps, coffee shops. The first thing it brings up is those people who are paying to be sponsored ads. And if you do a Google search for almost anything, you'll realize that if you put in the name of, a company like Tri-County Air for air conditioning, you might get Tri-County Air, but you're more likely, unless Tri-County Air is paying for Google ads, you're probably going to see 3 other companies right at the top. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to click on that and you're going to be booking a call with them instead of the company you originally were looking for. So that's paid Google advertising. Now, Facebook ad, by the way, is different. That is an ad that appears in your face just like a magazine ad, and it's intended to try to trigger your awareness and interest when you weren't deliberately looking. Instagram ads are the same way, and that's intended to create a relationship and awareness, name recognition, very different from a Google ad, and both of them are important. By the way, everything is important. A big billboard on your highway is important if you can afford it. TV ads are important. Radio ads are important. Magazine ads are important. Many of them are more expensive these days than what most of us can afford. And therefore, most people who talk about marketing for independent schools are going to talk about either social media marketing, which is not my primary goal today, or they're going to talk about search engine optimization, community outreach, i.e. events that get you known in the community and get people to come to your campus, or paid Google ads or paid Facebook ads. Now, search engine optimization is basically a way of taking your existing website and making sure that every single page has the right words that click with the words that people typically put into their search, like preschools near me. If you're running a private school that happens to have an early childhood program, but you're offended by the name preschool and you don't include that, when someone puts in preschools near me, you're not going to show up. The other concept is, are you above the fold or are you below the fold? Or are you on page 1 or are you on page 3, 4, 5, 6? So just like a newspaper, ideally you want to be at the top. You want to be the #1 ad. That's hard to achieve. You definitely don't want to be below the fold. And if you think about it on your laptop or your big computer, what you see at the top, the first screen, that's above the fold. If you have to scroll down below what was originally on the screen, that's below the fold. God forbid you're on page 2 or 3 or 4. Most people never go beyond page 1. Most people really don't go beyond the first 3 things that they see. The other thing is people are very impatient. People do not like calling and getting an answering machine. If you can, do not use answering machines. I don't care that it costs money to have a real human being do it. People get annoyed with answering machines, especially the ones that say, please listen carefully, because their menu options may have changed. What people are looking for is a human being. This is their child we're talking about. They want to know that if they call you, you're going to answer the darn phone within 3 rings, and you're going to have a smile on your face, and you're going to know what you're talking about. So a little bit of human contact goes a long way in terms of planning. How are we going to market our school? Another kind of thing you're going to plan for in your marketing campaign is what's called a nurturing campaign. That is essentially a series of follow-up emails after that first contact that, invites them. Notice you didn't book a tour yet. We invite you again. We'd love to have you. There's a special open house occurring this Saturday. We invite you if you're interested to sign up. Or here's 10 reasons why you might want to take a look at us. Or I'd like to introduce you to the teacher of the year at our school. I mean, there are any number of things you could do. So automated follow-ups are really great, and they help because people, again, will approach you typically 6 months before they're actually ready to pull the trigger, before they actually do anything. And doing something could mean booking a tour, coming to the campus, applying. They're checking you out way in advance. So you want to follow up every lead really quickly right from the beginning. Next thing you want to do is you want to have very personalized check-ins and very personalized tours. It doesn't mean you have to have one-on-one tours for every family, but sooner or later you're going to be meeting with an individual family. Now, having said this, you want to qualify your customers. Not every parent that approaches you can afford you. Not every parent that approaches you is looking for something like you. If what they're looking for is a Christian school and you are a secular school, they're not going to love you. So don't waste their time. Help them figure out, what are they looking for? What are you? Is there any kind of match between what you're offering and what they really want? So a nurturing campaign is intended, first off, to help them to figure out, are you the right fit? You're also trying to figure out, are they the right fit for you? And you're trying to develop a credibility, a relationship with these people. The other thing is you want to try to offer them what's called value-driven content to build trust. This webinar is an attempt on the part of the Montessori Foundation and AIMS to offer you, people who are involved in the leadership of independent schools something of value. And whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching the recording later, we're hoping that you get something of value from what we're doing. Now, I'm not here trying to entertain you as much as give you rock solid information that I hope you can use. But the intention is to get across we are people that you can take seriously. We have something meaningful to say. We are worth your time to learn more about. That's the same thing you want to do in your school. Now, you're going to build enrollment funnels and you're going to track what happens. So let's think about what is a funnel. A funnel is a very simple campaign. It starts with a call to action, and it could be nothing but a button on your website that says, click here to schedule a tour. It could be that it's an ad that people see on Google or on Facebook that says, click here to learn more. The bottom line is you're starting them down a journey, and usually the first step is click this button or make this call, and that in turn begins a series of steps. The simplest funnel is click here, fill out this information form so that we now put you into our CRM, which means Customer Relationship Management Software. And you want to keep track of every single person who ever contacts you. That's important. And you don't want to be doing that on a spreadsheet. You certainly don't want to be doing it on a Word document or index cards. You want to have a database that keeps really good records of who called you, when did they call you, because they may call you 3 or 4 times over a period of multiple years before they actually apply. The next thing you want to do is you want to have a really good way of tracking what happens with these people from the first time they contact you all the way until they either disappear from your life, tell you, leave me alone, I'm unsubscribing, or actually begin to apply for admission to your school. And so what you're doing is you're creating what's called a pipeline or a funnel. And the idea is people are coming in, big funnel at the beginning, it gets smaller and smaller because fewer and fewer people, as they sort themselves out, are going to be the right fit for your school. It's important for you to remember you can't be right for everybody. You need to be right for enough people that you can pay your bills. So the goal is be very clear. You need to work hard to make sure you got more than enough applications, but you don't want to waste your time on somebody who is looking for a school totally different from what you can deliver. You're not right for everybody, but you should always be kind and gracious to everybody. The next thing is you're going to develop in a marketing plan a seasonal marketing calendar. You're going to market your school by the season. For example, in most schools in the fall, you're going to have your tours and you're going to have people who are just beginning the admission journey. By winter, which often means late fall, anytime from October on, you're probably going to be doing aggressive open houses and applications are going to be coming in. Again, every school has its own calendar. And then in the spring and summer, you're going to be admitting people, you're going to be doing last minute tours. You're probably going to have some people who you thought were going to accept admission, who send you a Dear John letter and say, we've moved out of town, we're not going to be able to accept admission, we're so sorry. Bottom line is you're going to need to do a certain amount of last minute marketing. And that's what typically goes on in most schools in the spring and in the summer. By the way, you're also at that point, if you run a summer program, from winter on, you're going to be pushing the summer program, which is a great way, by the way, of getting families into your school in the fall. The next thing you're going to do is think about your content. Your content typically is going to include things like your blog, which is usually going to be articles. And, it could be things about your kids. It could be, meet the teachers. I want to take one teacher and tell you about this one teacher. It could be a blog about a special program or some special event or the story of an alum. It could be a lot of different things. And by the way, the same thing that's in your blog, which normally is going to be a picture and text, and it's typically going to live on your website. It's going to have a time and date stamp on it. You're probably going to have them sorted with most recent is what's at the top. But that same content might also go out over social media, except on social media, it's not going to go out as words. It's going to go out as a video, an audio, pictures with a voiceover, whatever you're going to do. It's meant to be more of a digital experience, more animation. And of course, you can also send out email campaigns. Email still works. Email can be a pain in the neck because we get so much garbage. But again, if people get used to the idea that when they get an email from you, typically you actually have something to say that's entertaining. Email, by the way, is probably the least effective of those three strategies. Text is working better these days than email. Most people are more likely to open a text than an email by 8 times. In other words, they're 8 times more likely to read it. Keep in mind, people have to read things multiple times before they even know that you were really talking to them. Next thing is you're going to create on your website, typically an FAQ page. Now, you could also put this on a landing page. A lot of times, an FAQ section is on any good landing page, but it's also typically on your website. It can be anywhere you want. You're also probably these days going to want to do a video tour of some sort or another. And you're going to do parent stories. I mean, we'll do special workshops in this series where we talk about how do you do a video tour and how do you get parent stories, not only in words, printed online, testimonials from our parents, but video stories are so much more powerful and they're so hard to get. But definitely, the more you can get parents and students to talk, the more likely it is that people will believe it. The last thought is you need to sound like the same school everywhere you talk. You can't have ads in one magazine sounding like an entirely different school. And you may think, well, of course we don't do that. But sometimes you need an outside voice to say, well, wait a minute, this ad doesn't even sound like the same school. So again, you want to be consistent. You're creating a lifestyle product. You want to grab people's attention. You want to entertain them. You want to educate them. You want to be a trusted voice in a very, very crowded marketplace. The next thing you want is a retention strategy in your marketing plan. You want to have a really strong plan to communicate with your current families, and you want to do more than just send out the typical insipid class newspaper. You need to give your parents bragging rights. What are they getting for all this money they're spending at your school? You want to have incredibly engaging events. Now, by the way, parents don't like to be educated. So you may not want to use the word parent education, but you probably know what I'm talking about. So you want to have great talks and events. Some of them will be social. Some of them will involve their kids. Some of them will be sports events. Some of them will be mothers and dads and kids field days. There are all kinds of events, but you definitely want to do them, and you want to educate parents, because educating parents, and that includes helping them to get their kids to do what they want to do. In other words, how to be a better parent, or how to help your kids to fall in love with history or literature, whatever it is they're doing. You want to help them to become better parents. And then finally, why do people come to our schools? Normally, it's because they want to be part of a community. We tend to think that our parents, because they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're very affluent, they're running businesses, we tend to think that they've got their stuff together. The odds are pretty good that under all that makeup and those very expensive clothing, they're probably not so sure they're doing the right thing. What parents want is a safe community. They want a place where they feel like no one's going to judge them, that they can let their hair down, where they've got other people who they can trust, especially the school leadership. Another thing you're going to want to do in your marketing plan is develop a plan for your referral program and your ambassador parent program. So obviously you want to do whatever you can to get parents to go online and put up honest to God reviews on Yelp, on great schools, on private school review, on niche.com, whatever it is, Google reviews, Google places, and you want to monitor each and every one of those websites to see what people are saying. And you want to develop a plan of what are you going to do if someone slams you? Because sooner or later, you're going to get slammed. I mean, I don't care who you are. Somebody's going to say, these people are a bunch of snobs, or this school was great until the new head of school came in and she is just horrible. Sooner or later, someone's going to really say something embarrassing about your school, and you want to catch it quickly. You want to respond in a very mature manner, and you want to come across as a school that's got its act together. Another thing you want to do is you want to offer incentives or thank you gifts. And by that, I don't mean, bring a parent to our school and we'll give you a year's tuition or $100 off your bill. I mean, you could, but to me, that's cheesy. But you definitely want to find a way to say thank you. And you want to use it not only after the fact, you want to incentivize people. Now, how to do it, that's a whole workshop in itself. But I really encourage you, give it some serious thought, talk to other schools and find out what they do, and incentivize people to help you. The next thing you want to do is help your parents figure out what to say about your school. In other words, they need talking points. If someone says to you, don't you have your kid at Aardvark Academy? What are you going to say? Here are 10 things you might want to share. If you agree, if this is consistent with your own experience, these are 10 things you might want to say about your experience at Aardvark Academy. Those are talking points. That's shareable content. The next thing you got to do is have a budget. You got to have a budget, and you got to figure out, what are your resources? What resources do you have? What are you going to do? And the idea is that you're building a written plan to go to the board. We're going to put this much money in. This is what our messaging is. These are the avenues we're going to spend money on. You got to have a whole plan, and that includes your budget. Again, my advice to you is, no matter how many people apply to your school, keep advertising. Don't rest on your laurels. That is, in the long run, a serious mistake. So you want to have a budget. You want to invest wisely. You want to keep track as to, is it working? And you want to be realistic, because stuff doesn't happen overnight. It takes time for marketing to really kick in and work. You want to allocate, what are you going to do? How much money are you going to spend season by season, and what platforms are you going to be using? Because you may be doing live events, you may be doing guest speakers, you may be doing what's called a Montessori silent journey in the winter, whatever you're going to do. Have a plan. And then you want to track your ROI, your return on investment. And you want to adjust your spending and your strategy as needed, so you're maximizing your return on investment. Do keep in mind, though, everything in marketing happens in slow motion. You speak today and someone hears it 8 months from now. So don't assume you can speak and it's going to instantly be measurable in actual applications, new money coming into your school. So when did you need to start marketing? The answer is, give or take, about a year ago. If you haven't been marketing aggressively up till now, today's a good time to start. Because if you don't start today, it'll be another year. So put your money where your mouth is and realize you have to spend money to make money. So then you want to review and refine your marketing plan. You've got a marketing plan. It's been put in writing. It's fancy. It's gone before the board. The board has looked at it. It's discussed it. It's debated. It's put its stamp of approval on it. Then you want to have a quarterly review of how is it working. You want to have the effectiveness evaluation of your campaigns. Is it working? And you want to refocus what you're doing during the course of the year. I don't care what it said in the marketing plan. If it isn't working, change it. It's in Montessori, you talk about follow the child. And what that really means is keep changing what you're doing to focus on what's really working and not working with the child as they change. Same thing is true of marketing. So let's wrap up. The first thing is, if you don't have a marketing plan, you want to write one. If you do have one, you want to regularly go back to it. You want to look at it. You want to see if you're actually doing what you said in writing. Is it working? The next thing you want to do is you want to be engaged with your current community. That means your parents and your children and your teachers. You want to engage with those people to build a strong, loyal, enthusiastic school community that really feels like this is our school. You also want them to feel that they can trust you, that you tell them the truth. There's no surprises here. They can count on you. The next thing that you want to do is you want to adjust your strategies based on what's happening. Is it working? So you're modifying, you're adjusting the wheel of your car, you're steering to one side or the other according to what is working or not working. And then you want to invest in a continuous attempt to improve what you're doing. You want to create new brochures, new ads. You want to make new videos. In other words, don't assume that what worked last year will work this year. Keep working at this thing. And then finally, enjoy yourself. Celebrate. This is good work. This is what keeps the money flowing into your school. You want to celebrate your success. You want to acknowledge when something didn't work, but you want to pay attention to what's working, because lots of things you're doing have worked, will work, are working now. Pat yourself on the back for everything that is working correctly. And so that is it. So again, my name is Tim Selden. I'm president of the Montessori Foundation. I'd love to know whether you found this to be helpful or if there are any questions you have that you want to ask.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I'll just hop in real quick and just say, yeah, use the Q&A feature. We have some time here for some questions. And as I posted in the chat, in the follow-up email that you're going to get, we're going to include certainly the recording with slides. And then Tim also put together a marketing plan template. So it kind of templatizes a lot of what we talked about today. It's going to give you as a guide for developing your marketing plan, especially if you don't have one already. So keep an eye on your email for that. And as always with our webinars, there's the post-webinar survey. We read all of those, so please keep telling us how you like the sessions, what you want to learn more about, how we can make them better. Certainly, if you need any assistance from us, whether it's talking with Tim and the team to help you develop your marketing plan. If you're looking at software or marketing services, you can let us know. And if there's anything else you need, anything else you need, let us know how we can support you.
The only other thing I would say is if you're not already using a company like Ames, which Clint owns and runs, I really, as someone who is not a stockholder in Ames, recommend you look it up. This is good stuff, and you need this kind of software. And there's lots of companies out there. There's Nido Marketing, there's School Success, there's niche.com. What I appreciate about Clint is he's much more affordable. He's got software that is best of class, and he is doing some amazing things that most schools can afford. And it's the most powerful software I've ever seen. And I've worked with HubSpot and Fusionsoft and some really great stuff. And as some of you know, we are mentors and coaches and consultants to some of the biggest private schools around, and they all use different agencies and softwares. In my opinion, there is nothing better than what I've seen from Clint, and I really like his work. If you need help putting your marketing message together, the Montessori Foundation is not an ad agency, but we understand schools. We understand it granularly. We understand the psychology of why parents do what they do. And by talking with you and talking with your parents, we can help you put together not only a marketing plan in writing for your board, we can not only help you figure out your budget, whether you're working with Niche or Ames or whoever, we can help you actually develop your brochures, your videos, your whole messaging campaign. So we're here to help. We do a lot more than marketing. We are school consultants. We help schools through periods of growth and crisis and schools that are being born. And some of us have known each other for a long time. And while I run the Montessori Foundation, we at the Montessori Foundation speak more than Montessori. We speak parochial, we speak Christian, we speak Jewish, we speak independent. We understand what it's like to run a non-public school, and we work with lots of public and charter and magnet schools too. We understand that. So we're here to help. Clint, any last words from you, my friend?
Well, we have a question that came in, and we've had a couple people ask about what are the websites. I put the Ames website in there, Montessori.org in there, so you can check the chat. You can click right over to those websites. But we did have a question from Timothy here. How effective is it for schools to have infant toddler programs to feed the primary and elementary programs?
Well, I'm guessing that that's a Montessori educator who's asking that, because usually we don't see infant toddler programs outside of Montessori. The way I would look at it is it's a loss leader. You're going to lose money on infants unless you charge what it costs. So Tim, is it Tim that was the question? Whoever it was,
Yes,
it
Tim.
it costs somewhere between 35,000 and 45,000 to pay the true cost of educating and caring for an infant. Toddlers, it usually costs between 20,000 and 30,000. My best advice to you is charge what it costs, because people in that position may or may not be able to afford it, but they are the most motivated because they desperately need it. Now, if you choose to underwrite the program, you would not be alone. That's very common. And you're absolutely right. If you can get a young professional family when they're first going back to work, and you can provide them with reliable help and a safe environment like my mother did. She ran an incredibly family-friendly 12-month-a-year college preparatory Montessori school, the Barry School, which is still there today in Silver Spring, Maryland. There's nothing wrong with being family-friendly. There's nothing wrong with running year-round. The real issue is, can you find quality staff to meet the needs of those children and those families, so that you yourself are not going to have to go into work at 6 o'clock in the morning to open up and take care of the 3 infants that have just been dropped off. So the answer is, of course, you're going to bond families to you in a way that there really is no better way to do it. But I also understand and respect. And by the way, I started at the Barry School when I was 1 year old. And my own kids all went to the Barry School from give or take 1 or 2 until they graduated or until they chose to go to another school. So I'm a great believer in being year-round, being family-friendly, early and late. That's not daycare, that's family-friendly. However, I also know how hard it is to do it well, to have the right staff, to have staff that feel like they're not basically just daycare workers. So what you want to do is, one of my friends in the Montessori world does a great workshop called How Do We Help Assistants or Low Paid Early Young Staff Have a Growth Mindset? that what they're doing is not just changing diapers, that what they're doing actually makes a difference in the world. And I think that's, in my opinion, whether a Montessori school or a monastery school or a public school, I'm a great believer in supporting families. And if you can do it, and we can help you do it. We have lots of friends who are great infant, toddler educators. I recognize how hard it is to do it. I also recognize how valuable it is.
Tim, if you're okay on time, we had a couple other questions come in, and I'll answer this one that just came in. If anybody goes to the Ames website, yes, we started out as software, and that's a primary function of what we have, which is marketing and admission software. But we do have done for you services on top of that, whether it's done for you getting it software set up, or if you're saying, hey, we just need somebody to talk to, say, hey, we've got a campaign coming up. Could you help us run that campaign? Can you help us run the ads? Can you do our SEO? Yes, we can do that as well. So if you're on the site, you can book a call with us. We'll hop on, we'll go through that and come up with a solution that fits really any budget. That was our big goal, is that we want solutions that fit all budgets. We did have a question, and I think I'm reading this correctly, is how can Montessori be introduced in an environment that is where kindergartens are predominant?
Oh, I don't think that's a
Until I
problem.
read that question.
I
Christoph, if
mean,
I'm not
yeah, no,
asking
it's
that
fine.
correct. Yeah, I didn't think that would be
For
a problem.
those of you who are not Montessorians, forgive the Montessori talk. First off, I think every single school, whether you're Montessori or not, would do well to learn as much as you possibly can about Montessori. Because, man, first off, it's not copyright, it's not a franchise. I'm not the Montessori police. Anyone can pick up any idea from Montessori and use it, hopefully use it well. And I think there's so much good in Montessori that every single school in the world would benefit from looking and asking, gosh, is there anything here that we could use? So the Montessori Foundation was created to support and promote high quality Montessori education anywhere in the world. We don't care. The answer to the question that you've asked, and I suspect that's from someone running a Montessori school, is you've got a whole bunch of kindergartners. They're probably coming in with no Montessori background. And so what it means is you got to take kids where they're at. Well, that's nothing but diagnostic, prescriptive, child-centered education. Obviously, I'd much rather get a kid at birth. I'd much rather take them through each stage of life from the first year of life, the second year. I mean, I can do a whole lot more. But the reality is, all of us, whether we're high school teachers, college teachers, middle school teachers, we can do things to do so much good for so many kids. And while we have to modify our program to meet the needs of a group of kids, for example, whoever's asking a question, if you've got a class of, let's say, 20, 25, 30 kids, and 20 of them are brand new kindergartners, like we see in a lot of public Montessori schools, you're going to have a bunch of 5-year-olds that don't behave like Montessori 5-year-olds. That's okay. They're human. You work with them where they're at, and you figure out what works for them. And following the child, designing your program to meet the reality of the kids that you've got is the secret of Montessori. I don't care if you're dealing with teenage girls or whether you're dealing with 5-year-old children. It works. And I'd be more than happy. By the way, if you go to montessori.org, and I think it's /consultation, you can book a free call. More than happy to talk with any of you who want to talk about anything. I don't get a toaster if you sign up for consultation services. I've actually blown retirement. I love this work. And I'm more than happy, as are all my colleagues at the foundation. We're happy to help. Whether you speak Montessori or you speak something different, we're here to help. Clint, anything more?
Okay. I got one other question if you're good.
I'm good.
Uh, how do you identify your ideal parent? Some of these made commitments and enrolled multiple children, but then pulled them out early in elementary, citing financial concerns.
Well, first off, every single parent I've ever met is going to do what's best for their family. They did not swear an unbreakable oath of permanent allegiance to you, your school, parochial education, Jewish education, or Montessori. That's the reality. They're going to do what they think is best. Second, when their kid is little, if you happen to be taking kids in when they're very young, they may be saying, look, I'll tell this school whatever they think they want to hear, if that's what it takes to get in. And then when the time is right, they'll send you a Dear John letter. Clint, I'm so sorry. Thank you for everything you did for Samantha, but it's time for her to go to real school. Um, she got into Snate Academy, or she's going to local public schools. We're always going to be so grateful to what you and the other folks at Aardvark Academy did for her. Um, People do this. So the question you asked is, how do you find your ideal parent? And there's a lot to that. One way of thinking about it, my friend, is think about the parent that makes you crazy, that breaks your heart. I think you would agree that would be a parent that comes in with a gun, comes in with a baseball bat, goes on Facebook and does everything they can to smear you, beats up a child, beats up a teacher. I mean, really bad stuff. Along the way, as we go down the scale, there are really annoying people. And quite often, the people they're going to really annoy are the teachers. They're going to break their hearts. They're going to make them scared. So again, what you've got to ask yourself is, of the parents that you've known in your career, what are the ones that come to your mind that you wish you could clone? What was it about them that you really loved? And then do the opposite. Think about the parent from hell that made your life miserable. What were they like? And then ask yourself, is there anything that we might have looked for that might have given us a clue that we were getting ourselves into trouble? And the reality is, I don't care how hard you work and how good your admissions process is, at least 10% of the time, you're going to be blindsided. People that you think are going to be the perfect match turn out to be a nightmare. So, among other things, you've got to figure out when it's not working, how do you know when it's not working? How do you gracefully get out of it? I mean, that's a whole series of seminars in themselves. I wrote a book called Finding the Perfect Match, which is all about finding the perfect teachers and finding the perfect families. But the bottom line is, you won't always know, my friend. You're going to do the best you can, but you can definitely increase the odds. You can reduce the number of aggravating experiences down to a really manageable number. And you can also create a community of families that, for the most part, is so supportive of what you're doing that when someone gets out of line, they will shut them down for you. You won't have to be the one to do it. However, among things that I have talked about and will talk about in these webinars for school leaders like us are, what do you do when your parents are up in arms and the pitchforks are out and they got the torches and they want to get those rascals on that board, get that administration, get those teachers fired, when you really are up against a high stress situation? How do you handle really, really difficult conversations and meetings? And that's another one of the arts that I think we all want to master. And I will tell you, when I was 21 years old, I had my first one of those, and my heart was in my mouth, and it was bad. And I've learned along the way strategies that make it better, but we all go through periods when you just can't wait for the storm to be over.
All right, awesome. Great job, Tim. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't see any other questions. So let's but I'll just remind everybody, you're gonna get the recording, the templates, the slides, whole host of really great resources from today's session in a follow-up email. Let us know how you liked it, what else we can deliver in the post-webinar survey, and keep an eye on your email for invitation for next week's webinar.
Please do take the time to fill out that questionnaire. We really appreciate it. And let us know what it would help you if we talked about. Again, these are intended to be, shall we say, lead magnets. We're doing this because we think what we're saying has real value for some of you. Let us know what would have more value, and we'll be happy to address it. And our goal, obviously, in doing it is to hopefully help you to feel who we are, whether or not we have something that would be useful to you. And obviously, the goal in my case, I want to keep those nonprofits coming into the foundation. In the case of Clint, I think he wants to feed his kids and his family and keep his business growing. I'm happy to work with Clint because, as I've said before, I haven't seen anyone do it better. And I'm a big fan. And by the way, I'm a customer. I use it too. So we're here to help. Bottom line, please reach out to us if we can help you. Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you
Thanks,
next week.
everybody.